Hello Leo, and welcome to your monthly horoscope for August for the Sun or the Ascendant. As ever, I'm going to give you the key features to look out for in summary, but then we'll dive deep to give you in much greater detail all the ins and outs affecting your sign in particular. And one of the wonderful things about August for you is that the new moon, which occurred on the 28th of July, was in a trine with Jupiter, the planet of fortune. Now, it just so happened that Jupiter went retrograde that day, but as you come into this new month, a sense of upbeat positivity can definitely show itself from that influence alone. Also, Mercury's in your sign initially, which is going to help you to be quite nimble in terms of articulating your ideas. But Venus moves from a more subdued location and on the 11th moves into your sign as well. That's going to be a real opportunity to give your personal appearance some kind of makeover, or to draw more goodness to you when it comes to the admiration that's always important to you Lions. Now, of course, there is a full moon this month in your opposite sign. That's on the 12th. I'm going to be telling you about that. It is true that Uranus is involved in that, and also Uranus and Saturn are back in a square all of this month. If you remember, they had 3 connections in the square last year, and also at the start of this year they were in contact as well. So within 3 degrees that influence is being repeated. So that's very, very important, and I need to delve into that for you. There's also a potentially very lively and vivacious and possibly flirty moment that could unfold in your situation from the 16th to the 20th. So I'm excited to tell you about that. And also the arrival of the punchy energy of Mars in your sector of friendship in the future for an incredibly rare 8-month stay, and that's from the 20th. So please stay with me for that. If you would like to ascend above this Zodiac broadcast and make use of more serious astrology, if you tell me 3 pieces of personal data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you a roadmap that can guide you for the rest of your life. Also, a 12-month forecast in my special package of 30% off, totally unique to you. Please see the link beneath this video. Now, I've just gone through the 100,000k mark in terms of subs on YouTube. I'd be delighted if you could help me to get to 101 really quickly. If you've yet to subscribe, please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. Please stay with me for your in-depth August forecast. So Leo, as you come into August, the sun's glittering alliance with the moon, your new moon, is the most important new moon of the year when it comes to the sun. The most important new moon of the year when it comes to the moon is, of course, Cancer. And the new moon on the 28th of July was in a trine, which is 120 degrees, with Jupiter, the planet of hope, the planet of growth. And Jupiter governs the second 10 degrees of your sign, the second decan. So a very, very important influence, because Jupiter in your 9th house is about adventure, it's about enterprise, it can be about being a bit more happy-go-lucky, and the Sun in your sign really can help you to get in touch with all that's good about your core nature. So that combination brings you into this month. But it is true that Venus is tucked away in a more private location. Perhaps if a relationship hasn't been working quite so well, Jupiter being for the first 10 days in your 12th house is going to give you a lot of food for thought. But equally, you do have Saturn in your 7th house of relating in a retrograde, and that's squaring with Mars from the 3rd to the 12th. If there's a professional relationship or a relationship with someone older or much younger than you in your family, that could be a bit of a frustrating time. Also, as I mentioned before, all this month, Saturn and Uranus are in a right angle. Saturn's about containment and restraint. Uranus is about freedom. Uranus, along with Mars at the start of this month and the North Node, are in the part of your scope to do with how you connect with the wider world. And they're asking you to be more risk-taking, more authentic. That's not saying you weren't authentic before, but more authentically pursuing what gives you the ability to express how you want to be seen by a wider group of people. So it's about raising your profile. Now, you're known as someone who has a very charismatic way about you anyway. So Mars, Uranus and the North Node in the 10th house is helping you to elevate your image. The problem is that somebody close to you or someone involved in the mix may be finding that a little bit difficult. Perhaps you're breaking down a way of being to be a little bit more in the moment. You know, you are a fixed sign, so patterns that you're comfortable with give you a sense of security. But I think Uranus and Mars particularly have been making you a lot more daring. The question this month asks is how do other people feel about you asserting your individuality a lot more? Now, once Mercury moves on the 4th out of your sign and into the precise sign of Virgo, that's a good change when it comes to thinking about how you marshal your resources. And once the Sun moves on the 23rd, that's going to be a bigger theme for the rest of the month. It could be that you're starting something new with all this first house energy, or injecting ongoing strands with much greater enthusiasm. The issue is not just that Saturn is blocking Mars, it's that also on the 12th, when the full moon occurs, it is squaring up Uranus, but then from that point through to the 17th, your Sun is in direct opposition with Saturn. If there are any weaknesses around relationships, I think they are going to come into the open. But I think Venus moving into your sign on the 11th is going to give you much greater desire to get what you really want around your relationships. Now, ironically, Venus is blocked by Saturn in the last week of this month. I think if there is an intense conversation then, it could actually be more about money. But I think at the heart of this month, you're really going to discover who you're on good terms with, who you can easily have an accord with, and those people where that's much more difficult to achieve. Because for you, this is the time when you want to manifest what makes you the individual you are. And if someone around you resents that, or is jealous about it, or is demanding that you give them more attention just at the point when you want to seize the limelight, that really could be quite debilitating for you. However, from the 16th to the 20th, Venus in your sign forges a truly magical link with Jupiter. This is probably the luckiest aspect you can get outside of Sun aspects to Jupiter. If you think about Venus, it isn't just about relationships, it's also about money, but it's also about aesthetics, you know, fashion, as I was mentioning before. But Jupiter in the 9th house is very Sagittarian, even though it's located in Aries. But I think the combination between the two, Jupiter known as the greater benefic and Venus the lesser, these are the two planets of fortune coming together. And I think if you do something creative to be truly in touch with who you are, you could really dazzle someone. And if you're single, I think this could bring a new admirer into your world. Just don't be surprised if you meet this person on your travels, or this person comes from a different background, or is even someone who lives overseas. I think that would all be entirely possible. Now on the 20th, Mars makes its way into the sign of Gemini. This is known as an ingress. Now Mars usually takes 6 weeks to make its way through each zodiac sign. So at this point, for the 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of this month and the previous 3 weeks of July, it's been in your sector of success. and it's been helping you to be much more self-assured about asserting your talent. But moving into the 11th house, this is about the collective, but it's also about friendships and your long-term future. And you're going to go through a much more sociable phase, Leo, from now through to next March. Very, very rare extended transit of Mars. But of course, Mars is about our ego. And the 11th house, because it's about the collective, is about where we can collaborate and cooperate. So where you have friendships where you can be totally uniquely yourself, but you still find points of consensus and points of cooperation, those friendships are going to go from strength to strength between now and next spring. So the next 8 months can be really exciting for you. What can be a bit more challenging in October and November is that Mars goes into a square with Neptune. But if you want to find out more about that, please check out my special in-depth Neptune retrograde video, which you can find on the channel. But Mars moving into the 11th house can also see you taking a leader role in group situations. So if you've ever wanted to work in community politics or do some kind of volunteer scheme, your enthusiasm for this type of thing can be terrific. If you're someone who enjoys being quite sporty, this is going to be turned up to max, and team sports will really grab you even more. By the 23rd, however, the Sun moves from your sign and into Virgo, briefly joining up with Mercury. Now for you, this is an opportunity to see how far some of those individual plans and projects that you've been propagating have come, because the second house for you is about the foundations of situations, but it's also about money. It can be about food, and it can be about sensuality, but it also can be about self-worth. So all those themes can come more sharply into focus in this last 10 days of the month, or I should say last week of the month. But on the 24th, Uranus, in the sign of Taurus, where it's technically in its fall, that goes into a retrograde through to my birthday, actually, the 21st of January. And Uranus is pushing you, as I said, to be more authentically yourself in the way you connect to the world at large. So if that means being a bit less conservative about your dress sense, or pursuing hobbies and interests which push you outside your comfort zone, or you hang out with more radical types of people, that can all be very good, because you can be so conservative with a small c. But this retrograde is going to see you thinking a lot about your role in life and asking yourself the question whether you're really getting out of that role everything you need, and is more change, which Uranus asks us to embrace, needed in order for you to really feel satisfied. Now the 26th sees Mercury move, but just before that, for about 5 days, from the 20th to the 25th, Mercury forges a very penetrating link to Pluto. If you need to think about finance linked to practicalities, you're going to have a real gift to do so in a very forensic way during those group of days. Also, once Mercury moves into Libra, which for you is house 3, things speed up. It's forging a dazzling alliance to Mars. Mars in your sector of friendship, remember. So some exciting conversations could occur at the end of this month. But then there is that opposition between Venus and Saturn. Whether you've met someone earlier in the month, or it's a long-term relationship which maybe has been giving you some food for thought, you're going through another testing the metal moment. But if you get through this opposition, the chances are the relationship can start to develop if it's new. If it's a longer term relationship and you're still struggling to really get that balance between your individuality and the parts where you need to work closely together, this can be a telling influence. But on the 27th, the Virgo new moon squares with Mars. You know that old maxim that business and pleasure don't really mix? It may be something you do need to be mindful of as you make your way into September. The reason for this is that a Virgo new moon for you gives you an even greater ability to discriminate and really be very meticulous in the way that you grapple with resources. Now Mars, on the other hand, in the 11th house, could see you egged on by friends. Perhaps someone's going to say, oh, I've got a great idea. Could be to do with digital currencies or a get-rich-quick scheme. You know, all these things have had their moments, haven't they, over the years? And a new one can be reimagined. You know, whether it's even one of those sort of multi-level marketing schemes that in themselves the products can be often very good, whether it's, you know, sort of domestic products that have an ecological basis or makeup. Often the products themselves are very good. And of course, if you recruit people that stick with the program, it can work out very well. But often people will buy in for a bit, talk to their friends, and then it kind of loses impetus after a while. So if anyone does try to enthuse you about that kind of thing, I'm not saying you shouldn't go for it. I'm just saying being mindful that Mars will give you a lot of enthusiasm for a lot of things over the next 8 months, and you've got to make sure that where you direct that enthusiasm is really going to be worth the effort in terms of money. And you cannot afford to be too idealistic around money with that particular new moon. So as much as it's good to be positive, we're living in, you know, tricky times for costs. Everyone's seeing a cost of living increase, and therefore I wouldn't be too free and easy with your resources or even your generosity as this month draws to a close, but you can be positive, and it's just finding that balance. So this is a month where you definitely need to strut your stuff, Leo. You need to show people how dynamic you can be, but you also need to expect that some people may find that a little threatening or a little challenging. But sometimes in life we have to really stick with what we believe in. It's like when I started astrology, you know, it's like I was working in sort of business management, went into astrology. Astrology is much more in vogue now than it ever was then. And, you know, it's a real head scratcher for a lot of people, including me, because I certainly didn't do it for the money, but I did it because it felt right. And this could be a month where you need to stick with what feels right, even if you do get some comments, judgments, or even sort of lack of cooperation from some individuals, because new people are going to be coming into your world over the next 8 months, and it's going to be really exciting for you.